Beloved, a ghost from the past. A house full of secrets. Once on a quiet street just outside Cincinnati, Ohio, there stood a house that everyone in town avoided. It was 124 Bluestone Road. The house was loud, not with voices or music, but with a ghost. The people inside didn't talk about it much, but the ghost was always there, slamming doors, shaking furniture, leaving cold air in warm rooms. The house belonged to a woman named Setha, a strong, serious woman who had once been enslaved but had escaped to freedom. She lived there with her daughter Denver, a quiet teenager who rarely went outside. Setha's two sons had run away years earlier, frightened not by people but by the ghost that lived with them. A ghost was small, angry, and lonely. And it had a name, Beloved. Shadows of the past. Setha tried to live a quiet life. She worked hard. She cooked, cleaned, and took care of Denver. But her heart was heavy, always carrying a past too painful to speak aloud. Years before, Setha had escaped from a terrible place called Sweet Home, a plantation in Kentucky. There, she had been enslaved. Her body had suffered, but what hurt most was what they had tried to take from her: her children, her memory, and herself. But Setha had run, and she had survived. With help from a woman named Amy Denver, whom she named her daughter after, Setha had crossed the Ohio River, pregnant, barefoot, determined to find freedom. She made it, but she didn't escape the past. A stranger returns. One day, a man arrived at 124. His name was Paul D. He had once lived with Setha at Sweet Home. He had escaped too after a long and terrible journey. When Paul D. walked into the house, the ghost didn't like it. The walls shook, the windows slammed shut. But Paul D. was tired of ghosts. He shouted, fought the spirit, and drove it out. For the first time in years, the house was still. Setha began to smile again. Denver watched with hope. Maybe their quiet life could finally begin. But the story wasn't over. A girl by the river. One day, after a walk, Setha and Denver saw a young woman sitting by the river. Her clothes were soaking wet. Her skin was smooth and dark. She looked about 20 years old, but her voice was soft like a child's. She said her name was Beloved. Seth froze. That was the name she had carved onto the gravestone of her baby girl, the child she had lost long ago. A girl moved into their home. She didn't remember much. She slept a lot. She seemed to know things she shouldn't. She asked strange questions and watched Setha with deep, hungry eyes. Who was she? A stranger? A spirit? A memory come to life? Setha didn't know, but something inside her whispered. She's mine, a truth no one told. As the days passed, Paul D. became uneasy. He didn't trust Beloved. She walked too quietly. Her eyes were too sharp. And Setha was changing. She began spending more time with Beloved. She told her stories from the past, painful stories she had never told anyone else. She spoke of Sweet Home, of suffering, of survival, and finally of the day that haunted her most. A day when slave catchers came to 124. Setha had only just escaped. She had her children with her. But when the men came to take them back, something inside her broke. She would rather her children die free than live enslaved. That day, one of her children, a baby girl, died. Setha had carved one word into the gravestone: Beloved. Love and guilt. Now, the girl named Beloved sat across from Setha every night. She listened to every word, soaking it in. And Setha? She believed this was her daughter, returned from the dead. She tried to make up for everything. She gave Beloved the best food, the best clothes. She stopped going to work. She stopped smiling. All she wanted was to love her daughter enough to erase the pain. But Beloved grew demanding. She wanted more stories, more attention, more control. And Setha, drowning in guilt, gave her everything. Denver watched in silence, afraid. The house, once shaken by a ghost, now felt heavier than ever. Denver's courage. Finally, Denver couldn't take it anymore. She stepped outside, really outside, for the first time in years. She went to the town, asked for help, and told the truth. There's something wrong in our house. We need help. The people of the town, once afraid of Setha, came together. Women gathered in prayer. They stood outside 124 and sang. Inside the house, Beloved began to break. She screamed, she cried, she trembled. And when Setha saw a white man riding toward the house, like the men who had come long ago, she lost herself. She ran at him, wild with fear. But the man was not a slave catcher. He was just a local employer. The women held Setha back, and in the chaos, Beloved vanished. A quiet after the storm. Setha lay in bed, weak and quiet. Denver began working for a family in town. She made friends. She smiled. Paul D. returned. He sat by Sethi's side. "You've got 2 feet, Sethi," he said gently. "Not chains. Come on, let's get up." The house was no longer haunted. But Beloved, her memory, never truly left. She became a ghost of a different kind, not in walls or floors, but in stories, in dreams, in names whispered and forgotten. The power of memory. This is not a story to pass on, the narrator says. But it is. Because Beloved is not just about a ghost. It's about how the past lives in the present, how pain can take shape, how love, deep, fierce, imperfect love can both heal and hurt. Setha's story reminds us, we are shaped by what we remember. But we are not trapped by it. Even the deepest wounds can begin to heal when we choose courage, truth, and love.